Hey, everybody. My name is Logan Mallory. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Motivosity, and I am really glad to be here with you as part of this Rev Tech event and appreciate everybody who's worked really hard to put this together. I realize you've probably been in a few different tracks and talked about different parts of the marketing journey and the marketing cycle. And I hope I can help you think about things a little bit differently today. Instead of thinking about your tech stack, or instead of thinking about your automation or your investment and your program spend, I want to help you think for just a few minutes about your marketing team, right? And your sales team. I want you to think about what the people that are working for you or in your organization are experiencing right now. And I'm going to give you hopefully a little bit of a survival guide. So some tips to hopefully help you think about helping your team. It's February 2023, and it just feels like the world is still a Sharknado movie. I have to admit, I've never seen any of the Sharknadoes, but I kind of get the point from the trailer and from the movie poster. But like, this is what the world kind of feels like right now. There is so much chaos going on. Even as I recorded this, Disney just said, "Hey, we're letting go of 7,000 people." Like there are all sorts of things happening right now that are causing chaos, not only for organizations, but for the people that are a part of that. And it's a really tumultuous time. I did a webinar the other day with 2,400 attendants. Most of the people were HR professionals. And I put this survey poll in front of them. And I asked them, as an HR professional, how are you feeling about the challenges that lie ahead in 2023? And again, we were mostly talking about the challenges around people and engagement and retention. And so we gave them 4 options. They felt confident, they felt like it would be pretty normal, they felt uncertain, or they felt scared. And we put that survey in front of people. Oops, excuse me, I went the wrong way. And here were the results. Only 18% said they felt confident. 27% said it'll probably be like normal, but 55% fell into the uncertain or scared category. Now, I use that as a representation of how people in your office, and more importantly than office, on your revenue teams are probably feeling, right? And there's a number of reasons for this. This image comes from Gartner, and I thought it was really helpful. Again, I took CHROs as a definition of people, right? Like, because I don't want you to think about your programs and your marketing spend or your sales quotas right now. I want you to think about your people. And so, there's this thought of, how do we have a great employee experience and create an organization where people want to stay? How do we make sure that our leaders and managers are effective? And through all the change of rough quarters or marketing spend being less effective, how do we manage that change? And there's a lot of obstacles that you can see on this outside ring. There's scarce or expensive talent. There's economic pressure to perform. And there's global supply constraints. And so that makes some of our jobs harder, especially if you're selling something physical or that isn't SaaS based. But I share this with you again, like, these are the things that we're up against. Here's my view for what I think about 2023. I think 2023 is going to be a little bit ambiguous. I think we're going to see a lot of contradicting situations, and here's a couple that I wanted to get started off with. Like, we have all these mass layoffs, and yet it's still a pretty competitive job market. Like, people can get great jobs right now, right? And there's, like, it's hard to get the talent that you want as a sales or a marketing or an organizational leader. We're hearing lots of talk about a looming recession and what could happen in the next few months. And yet people are making higher salaries than they've made in a long time. It's more expensive to hire someone than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And last but not least, I feel like organizations are providing so many benefits and perks, like more than ever. And yet we have these disengaged employees, and you hear about quiet quitting. And so it's kind of this ambiguous tale of 2 cities. If you want to make sure that your teams are successful, your revenue driving teams are winning in 2023, then you have a few things you're going to have to work around. And we're going to talk about two today. We're going to talk about the fact that they're feeling uneasy because of layoffs, and the fact that they're burnt out from mental health chaos and bad quarters. Like it's been a rough little bit. And so we're going to focus in on these for the next 10, 15 minutes here. And again, I hope it's helpful in giving you some ideas about how to support your revenue driving teams. So challenge number one, boosting morale with the uneasiness of layoffs. In the US, in the last 2 months of 2022, 1.2 million layoffs happened. And we've seen a lot more since then, a lot of big organizations and big companies. You can see those all over the place, right? You see Google and Alphabet cutting 12,000 jobs. You see, this is a real title. It literally said Silicon Valley bloodbath. 55,000 people are out of America's big tech jobs. One of the things I was asked about this in an article, I think for Business Insider the other day, and they said, you know, the job numbers aren't that bad, but people are really afraid of layoffs. Why is that? And part of it is that these are recognizable name brands that are doing massive layoffs. When Disney and Google and Meta and Amazon are laying people off, it just feels really close because those are brands that you do business with almost every day, right? And so even though those layoffs might not be as close as they feel, people are uncomfortable and it feels people feel fearful. In fact, 80% of workers are scared about their job security. 8 out of 10 of your team members are just kind of waiting for the shoe to drop or for a cardboard box to show up on their desk. 74% of employees who kept their job amidst a corporate layoff say their own productivity has declined since that happened. Think about it. Their friend is gone that they used to work with because they got laid off. They're uncertain about their own work. They're picking up the slack from the people that are gone. They're expected to do more with fewer people. And so like that takes a toll on people. And there's an emotional burden there. I'm a big fan of memes. Couldn't help but bring this in. Like we have these layoffs or we have all these, you know, this chaos in our organization or bad quarters. And it's funny because you see some leaders saying, all right, what do you need? How can we fix this? And the employees say things like, I need a better trained manager. I want to feel like what I do matters. I want to be recognized the way with things that I like. And the company says, great, best I can do is a pizza party, right? Like that doesn't solve the problem. And so as you're thinking about your team members who are so crucial, because whether through marketing or sales or an SDR effort are driving revenue, recognition and appreciation is a key to keeping them engaged and reducing some of the tension they feel because of layoffs in the economy. We study this all the time at Motivosity. This is something that we study cultures that celebrate their team members. And these are increases that we saw in those communities that care about recognition and appreciation. 96% more people said that their manager cares about them. 106% increase in people who said they have friends at work. And these two are so important. 134% increase in people that were willing to stay at their company despite being offered a similar job for 10% more. So even though they could go to a similar job and get 10% more, 134% more people were willing to stay because they felt recognized for the work they were doing. That's huge. Like if you want to keep your best talent, you want to keep the marketing talent that you can't replace or that would be more expensive to replace today, they're just saying, I just want to be appreciated more. And finally, 196% increase in an eNPS score. We asked people, are you willing, would you recommend this company to your friends as a place to work? And when cultures and organizations focus on gratitude and recognition, those numbers go through the roof. Gratitude boosts productivity, like it increases by 50% when they receive a thank you from their supervisor, and 81% of people would work harder for a grateful boss. And so if you're taking a hard-nosed approach or just assuming that your team member's paycheck or commission is what's going to keep them engaged, you're wrong. And I'd encourage you to change that. This is kind of a funny story. I report into the CEO of Motivosity. it's been a little bit since this happened, but early when I started there, I have one-on-ones every other week with Scott. And like, admittedly, early on, it was a little nerve-wracking. I was kind of nervous and didn't know how Scott felt about me and was still trying to get my footing under me. And after one of our one-on-ones, I got back to my desk and he had sent me a note through Motivosity and said, Logan, I love where you're taking our marketing team. It's like we're the new Justice League. And he had put in a picture of the Justice League, like movie trailer or something, into that recognition. And I like sat back and kind of like looked off into the corner. And I thought to myself, I am the Batman of marketing, right? Like, I was giddy and it changed how I felt. He didn't have to pay me more. He didn't have to give me the pizza party. He just told me I was doing a good job. And that gave me a lot of drive for a long time. Still feel good about it. Peer-to-peer recognition builds an empathetic culture that strengthens relationships, enhances collaboration, builds confidence, and even improves employees' physical health. So yes, if you are a people leader, you should go and recognize your team members. You should also empower them to appreciate and celebrate one another, because that changes how people feel. You're telling me your team wouldn't perform better and get closer to their target or their pipeline or their revenue if they weren't more collaborative and had more confidence and their physical health was better? Like, those are keys right there to getting more out of your team. But more importantly than getting more out of them, like supporting them and helping them be successful, which in turn makes the organization successful. A couple of stats here that might be helpful. Like, if you're thinking, hey, how do I go justify this? Or how do I justify spending the time or get buy-in from somebody else? Companies with highly engaged employees see 43% less turnover. When you're onboarded effectively, people are 18% more likely, or 18 times more likely to feel committed to their jobs. And part of onboarding is that culture and helping people feel recognized and appreciated as they win starting in the company. Companies with strong cultures see a 4x increase in revenue growth. And lastly, Deloitte says, hey, recognition increases engagement and productivity by 14%. So you've got a variety of stats there that say your team will perform better and help you drive more revenue if they feel engaged, and recognition and gratitude are a key to engagement. So I hope you'll try that on, see how it feels, see if that's something that you could do. Challenge number 2, burnout, mental health and wellness. It is a very real thing that your team members are struggling with. And you might be struggling with it. I'm struggling with it, right? Like, there are days where I feel burnt out. There are days where my mental health makes it hard for me to perform like I want to. And I think it's great that we're all understanding that and realizing that. But that doesn't mean we just have to sit with it. Like, we can work through that and find other solutions. Excuse that this is a little grainy. It was too good to not use. I love this. A student asking, like, what does it mean when an employee experiences burnout? And then you've got this vending machine with a sign that says, the light inside is broken, but I still work. Like, don't you feel like that sometimes? And don't you know that you have team members that feel like that, where they still work, but the light inside is broken? I'm rewatching Star Wars right now with my 4 little kids. And so I had to pull in a Star Wars meme. Your first day of work versus 1 year in your company. Like, people get burnt out. That's all there is to it, whether it's because of high targets, whether it's because of changes within the organization. Maybe their manager's hard to work with. Maybe their team's hard to work with. Maybe they have something going on at home. Maybe it's literally just mental health issues. I think we're all feeling a lot of the burden and the lack of wellness right now. 77% of companies have seen an increase in employees who report feeling burnt out. That's a massive jump. 3 out of 5 employees say stress causes them lack of interest, motivation, and energy at work. So 60% of your team members that are out there trying to help you hit quota, optimize the website, run demand gen programs, set up appointments, 60% of those are being impacted, and their performance is being impacted because of stress. And so we've got to address it. Like, I'm a firm believer that in personal responsibility, and we all need to take care of ourselves and be like self-sufficient. but I'm also a believer that companies can either make that harder or easier on their team members. Burnout comes from a lot of different places. Certainly this image I've got in front of you isn't comprehensive, right? Like there's more to it than this. Sometimes people feel like they're untreated or they're treated unfairly. Sometimes they have too much work. Maybe that's just because they can't say no, or they keep getting assignments, or they're picking up slack for a team member or somebody who was let go. Maybe it's lack of clarity around their role, and they don't feel like they have the right priorities and direction from you or their other leaders to be successful. It could be communication and support. It could be unreasonable time pressure. And again, I think all of these things are made worse whenever we have problems at home. And sometimes we do, whether that's financial or relationships or something happening with our kid or health of a parent. Like, these problems are only intensified when we have things happening at home. I love this quote from Neil. I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I loved this quote that he was talking about on employee burnout. He says, it's a common issue as employees are often expected to complete a variety of different tasks in a short period of time. And he says, how can leaders resolve this? You can look at this whole thing, but I want you to skip towards the very end of that middle paragraph. If employees don't have any free time, how will they innovate? Studies have shown that good employees with small pockets of open time at work will use this time to figure out how to be better at their jobs. And I think that's really important. If you want to help your revenue teams combat burnout, make sure that they're not overscheduled. Make sure that they have time where they can get creative and explore. Make sure they're not in back-to-backs all day. Maybe you have a day without meetings, or on Fridays it's a deep work day, or whatever it is. Make sure that you're giving your team members the opportunity to like have some free time, because that helps you combat burnout. The other solution that I would ask you to think about in relation to this is consider the entire employee experience. Now, your gut instinct is going to say, I'm not responsible for the entire employee experience. I'm only responsible for marketing or sales. I'm not responsible for onboarding and what's happening at the office. I'd push you to go think about that differently and go say, hey, company or leadership or executives, here's some things I'm noticing and here's some ideas. I'd encourage you to like speak up for that. And just know that you're fighting for your team and you're fighting for the goals of the company, but you're asking for resources to help with the entire employee experience. How a person feels about work accounts for 1/3 of their overall well-being. And I would argue that if your work is bad, that number is even higher, right? Like, it accounts for 1/3 of your overall well-being if things are going well. If it's a train wreck, it probably accounts for a lot more. Employee well-being is defined as the overall mental, physical, emotional, and economic health of your team members. It's influenced by their relationship with their coworkers, the decisions they make, the tools they have, and the resources that they have access to. And so look at that list for a second and just say, where could I be a better leader? Like, where could I step up and go get more resources or the right resources? Or what tools are holding my team members back that's causing, that's causing them to be more burnt out? And how could I go address that? I just put this out here so you'll like think about all the steps in the employee experience journey. Sure, you've got the attract and the recruit, and like, we got to get people interested in working for us. Then you have all these things in between. How do we onboard team members? How do we engage them? How do we develop them? How do we help them perform? How do we reward them? And eventually they'll probably move on. And that's great. Like, that's the name of the game. But while they're there, how do you make these parts of the employee experience meaningful? Forrester gives a definition on the employee experience, and I'll leave this here for a second so that you can look at it. I don't think you should look at this as a to-do list. I think you should look at this as like, where could I shore up my bets on my team and improve some of the weaknesses so that I can reduce the burnout my team members might be experiencing? Whether that's praise, like we talked about earlier, whether that's better communication, or whether that's learning and development, whether it's goal alignment. Like, this is just a list of ideas where you could go have a really positive impact on the employee experience that your team members are having. So often, we try to solve employee problems with software that's not meant for employees. Like, think about your intranet or your HRIS, your human resource information system, or think about whatever tool it is you put in front of people that they like hate logging into, right? I think what people want is they want tools that are meant for them. I'm going to skip over that. At the end of the day, your team members will stay, of course, when they're paid well, right? Like, pay is really important. We have to be able to take care of ourselves and our families. But then they're also looking for other things. They want to be mentored. They want to be pushed. They want to feel like there's a path for them to progress, and they want to be recognized. They want to feel like they have some autonomy over what they're doing and how they're doing it. And they want to feel like you're in their corner, coaching and mentoring them, not just managing them. If they feel managed, they will get burnt out sooner. If they feel mentored, they will excel. This is from our CEO at Motivosity, Scott. He was quoted in a Forbes article the other day, and I think he summed up my point really well. He said, after a year where mass resignations and quiet quitting have become so common, I believe that taking a fresh look at how to motivate and engage employees must be at the top of every leader's agenda for 2023. And that's what I would encourage you to think about today. I would encourage you to think about, hey, I want to perform my revenue, or I want to improve my revenue and my performance. And maybe one of the tricks to doing that isn't optimizing a landing page. Maybe it's not a new sales talk track. Maybe the best way that you can succeed revenue-wise in 2023 is investing heavily in how your team members feel about being at work. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. It is a very small world. And so I brought this up too early. I missed my punchline. But here's a QR code to my LinkedIn. I would love to connect. It's a small world and we need all the friends that we can get. And so feel free to reach out and connect with me. And if I can be a resource, if I can introduce you to someone or help you spread the word about a job opening, or if you need some help running a marketing idea through a fresh set of eyes, please just reach out to me and I'd be thrilled to help. Again, it's been a pleasure. Cheers.